Sunlight slipped through the gaps in the curtains of the luxury penthouse suite, painting streaks of gold across the room. A low groan broke the silence. Kang Ji-hoon, South Korea's youngest billionaire and CEO of Hansong Group, slowly opened his eyes. A sharp headache pounded behind his temples. His vision blurred as he tried to remember how he had ended up in a hotel instead of his apartment. Then he noticed someone beside him. His heart nearly stopped. A young black woman lay asleep on the other side of the enormous bed, still wearing her evening dress beneath a borrowed hotel blanket. Her curly black hair spread across the pillow, and one shoe remained on her foot. Ji-hoon immediately sat up. What happened? At the sound of his voice, the woman stirred. She blinked several times before shooting upright. My head, she muttered before noticing him. Wait, who are you? Before either of them could speak again, loud banging echoed through the room. Mr. Kang. Open the door. Another voice followed. Security. We know you're in there. The woman looked terrified. Ji-hoon frowned. This isn't right. The door burst open. Reporters flooded inside alongside hotel security and several men Ji-hoon recognized immediately, executives connected to Chairman Choi Min-suk, his biggest business rival. Camera flashes exploded like lightning. Mr. Kang. Is this your secret lover? Were you spending the night together? What happened in this room? The young woman jumped off the bed. Nothing happened, she shouted. No one listened. One photographer snapped pictures from every angle. Ji-hoon's expression hardened. This is a setup. Across the room, one of Chairman Choi's assistants smiled for only a second before hiding it. Ji-hoon noticed. So did the woman. She suddenly remembered the previous night. I know why this happened. Everyone turned toward her. She pointed directly at one of the rival executives. I saw him in the hallway arguing with a woman in a red dress. They kept saying, make sure she gets into room 2301 after he drinks it. The room fell silent. I was drunk after celebrating my first promotion, she continued. I accidentally walked into this room because the room numbers looked blurry. When I got here, he was unconscious on the floor. I couldn't leave someone like that, so I dragged him onto the bed and stayed in the chair all night. Ji-hoon stared at her in surprise. She had unknowingly destroyed the trap. One reporter asked, what's your name? She took a deep breath. My name is Myra Baptiste. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. I'm a black American citizen, and I recently moved to Seoul for work. Ji-hoon looked at her with gratitude. For the first time in years, someone had defended him without asking for anything in return. Neither of them realized that this chaotic morning, the one meant to ruin his reputation, would become the beginning of a love story neither had ever imagined. The media frenzy outside the hotel seemed endless. Reporters crowded the entrance, microphones stretched toward anyone who might offer another shocking detail. Headlines had already begun circulating online, but thanks to Myra's clear statement, the story was shifting from billionaire court and scandal to possible corporate sabotage. Inside a private conference room at Hansong Group headquarters, Kang Ji-hoon sat silently at the head of the table. His legal team, public relations director, and chief of security surrounded him. We've reviewed the hotel surveillance, his head of security reported. Someone disabled the hallway camera outside your suite for exactly 23 minutes. That wasn't an accident. Ji-hoon's jaw tightened. And the toxicology report. It confirms traces of a sedative in the whiskey served during last night's business dinner. The room fell silent. So, Ji-hoon said calmly, Chairman Choi finally crossed the line. Meanwhile, Myra sat nervously in another office, clutching a warm cup of tea. She had never imagined that celebrating her promotion with co-workers would end with lawyers asking her to recount every detail of the previous night. She rubbed her temples, still embarrassed by the mistake that had led her into Ji-hoon's hotel room. A gentle knock interrupted her thoughts. Ji-hoon stepped inside. For a moment, neither of them spoke. I wanted to thank you personally, he said. Myra gave an awkward smile. I don't think I did anything extraordinary. You saved my reputation. She laughed softly. I just told the truth. Ji-hoon admired how calm she remained despite being thrown into the spotlight. Most people would have demanded money or tried to use the situation for fame. She simply wanted the truth known. I owe you, he said sincerely. You don't owe me anything. He looked at her thoughtfully. Would you at least allow me to make sure you're safe? Her smile faded. Safe. The people behind this plan expected another woman to be in that room. Instead, they found you. Realization washed over Myra. If they know I ruined their plan, they may try to intimidate you. A quiet knock came at the door before Ji-hoon's assistant entered, looking unusually pale. Sir. What is it? The assistant placed a tablet on the desk. It's happening already. The screen displayed Myra's personal information spreading across several online forums. Someone had leaked her workplace, apartment building, and even edited photos to make it appear she had secretly dated Ji-hoon for months. Myra covered her mouth in shock. I've never even met you before yesterday. I know. Ji-hoon closed the tablet, his expression colder than she had ever seen. This isn't about me anymore. He looked directly into her eyes. They're trying to destroy your life because you protected mine. Myra swallowed hard. She had come to South Korea hoping for a fresh start, a chance to build a successful career far from home. Now, through no fault of her own, she had become the target of powerful enemies. Ji-hoon made his decision without hesitation. Until we expose the people responsible, you'll have my protection. Myra wanted to refuse, to insist she could handle herself. But the fear in her chest told her otherwise. For the first time since waking in that hotel room, she realized this nightmare was far from over, and somehow, the billionaire sitting across from her had become the one person she could trust. The next morning, Myra stood outside the towering gates of Kang Ji-hoon's private estate, still wondering how her life had changed so drastically in less than 48 hours. I really don't think this is necessary, she said as she looked at the elegant mansion surrounded by carefully trimmed gardens. Ji-hoon stepped out of the car beside her. I wish it weren't. Before she could respond, his head of security approached with a serious expression. We've received 2 anonymous threats overnight. One was delivered to Miss Myra's apartment building. Myra's heart sank. My apartment. The guard nodded. The building manager called us. Someone left an envelope with your name on it. What was inside? A single photograph. He handed it to Ji-hoon, who hesitated before passing it to Myra. Her fingers trembled as she took it. It was a picture of herself walking home from work 3 days earlier. Written across the bottom in bold black letters were the words, "Go back where you came from or next time, you'll disappear." A chill ran down Myra's spine. Ji-hoon gently took the photograph from her before she could read it again. You're staying here. She wanted to argue, but fear stole the words from her mouth. The mansion was nothing like Myra had imagined. Instead of cold marble halls filled with servants, it felt surprisingly warm. Fresh flowers decorated every room, classical music drifted softly through hidden speakers, and the staff greeted her with genuine smiles rather than suspicious glances. Mrs. Han, the elderly housekeeper, welcomed her warmly. You must be Miss Myra, she said with a gentle smile. Mr. Kang has prepared the East guest suite for you. Myra blinked. He prepared it himself? Mrs. Han chuckled. He insisted the room should feel comfortable. Myra couldn't help smiling. For someone the media called cold and untouchable, Ji-hoon seemed unexpectedly thoughtful. Later that evening, Myra wandered onto the mansion's rooftop terrace. The lights of Seoul sparkled below like thousands of tiny stars. It's beautiful, isn't it? She turned to find Ji-hoon carrying 2 steaming mugs. I made hot chocolate. She laughed. A billionaire who makes hot chocolate. He smiled shyly. My grandmother taught me. She said every difficult day ends better with something warm. Myra accepted the mug. My grandmother used to say almost the same thing. For the first time since the scandal, they laughed together. The conversation flowed naturally. Myra told him about growing up in Trinidad before later becoming a Black American citizen through her family. She spoke about her dream of working abroad and how earning a position at a Seoul marketing company had felt like the beginning of a new life. Ji-hoon listened carefully. When she finished, she looked at him. What about you? Were you always this serious? He chuckled softly. I wasn't. His smile faded as he stared at the city. I became CEO at 26 after losing both my parents in a helicopter accident. I'm sorry. So am I. Silence settled between them, not awkward, but comforting. Then Ji-hoon's phone rang. His expression changed the moment he answered. What? He stood abruptly. When did this happen? Myra watched the color drain from his face. He ended the call slowly. My company's research laboratory. He said quietly. It caught fire. He looked toward the dark skyline, his instincts telling him this was no accident. Someone wasn't just trying to destroy his reputation anymore. They were declaring war. The smell of smoke still lingered in the air as Kang Ji-hoon arrived at Hansong Group's research laboratory. Firefighters were packing up their equipment while investigators moved carefully through the charred remains of what had once been one of the company's most advanced facilities. Myra stood beside him in silence, wearing a simple navy blazer borrowed from the housekeeper. She knew she didn't belong at a corporate crime scene, but Ji-hoon had insisted she stay close. "It's worse than I imagined," he murmured. A forensic investigator approached them. "Mr. Kang, we've completed the preliminary inspection." "What did you find?" The investigator lowered his voice. "The fire didn't start by accident. An accelerant was used in 3 different locations." Ji-hoon's eyes narrowed. "So it was arson?" "Yes, sir." As the investigator walked away, Myra noticed a man standing behind the yellow police tape. He wore a black baseball cap and sunglasses despite the cloudy weather. The moment their eyes met, he quickly turned and disappeared into the crowd. "Ji-hoon," she whispered. He followed her gaze. "What is it?" "I've seen that man before." "Where?" "At the hotel." Ji-hoon's expression sharpened. "The morning everything happened." She nodded. "He was standing near one of Chairman Choi's executives. I remember because he kept watching the hallway." Without another word, Ji-hoon signaled 2 security guards. "Find him." The guards rushed into the crowd, but within minutes they returned empty-handed. He vanished. Ji-hoon clenched his fists. He planned his escape. That evening, the mansion felt unusually quiet. Myra found Ji-hoon sitting alone in the library, surrounded by shelves of leather-bound books. A chessboard sat untouched on the table before him. "You've been here for hours," she said gently. He looked up with a tired smile. "I come here when I need to think." She walked over and studied the chessboard. "My grandfather taught me how to play." Ji-hoon raised an eyebrow. "Really?" "I'm not very good." "Neither am I." She laughed. "I don't believe that." He gestured toward the chair opposite him. "One game." Within minutes, they were laughing over questionable moves and teasing each other about missed opportunities. "You let me take your queen," Myra said with a grin. "I was distracted." "By what?" He looked directly at her. "You." Myra felt warmth rush to her cheeks. For a moment, neither of them looked away. The world outside, the scandals, the threats, the fire, seemed to disappear. Then the library door swung open. Ji-hoon's assistant rushed inside, breathing heavily. "Sir." Ji-hoon stood immediately. "What happened?" "The police found evidence." "What kind of evidence?" The assistant hesitated before answering. "They found fingerprints inside the laboratory." "Whose?" "They belonged to one of Chairman Choi's senior executives." For the first time since the nightmare began, they finally had a lead. But before anyone could celebrate, Ji-hoon's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. He opened it. A short video began to play. The footage showed Myra leaving her office earlier that afternoon. Someone had secretly followed her. The video ended with a chilling message on the screen. "You're protecting the wrong woman. Next time, we won't miss." Ji-hoon's grip tightened around the phone. His calm expression vanished, replaced by fierce determination. Whoever was behind the attacks had made one critical mistake. They hadn't just threatened his company anymore. They had threatened the woman who was slowly becoming the most important person in his life. The threatening video played over and over in Ji-hoon's mind. He stood in his study long after midnight, staring out at the city lights. 4 years, he had endured ruthless business tactics, false rumors, and corporate sabotage. But this was different. This time, an innocent person had been dragged into the fight. A knock came at the door. "Come in." Myra stepped inside, still wearing a comfortable sweater and jeans. She had noticed the lights in his study and guessed he hadn't slept. "You've been avoiding everyone," she said softly. Ji-hoon sighed. "I'm sorry." She walked over and leaned against the bookshelf. "You think this is your fault, don't you?" He remained silent. "If I hadn't invited you to stay here, they would still have found me," Myra interrupted gently. "None of this is because of you. It's because someone chose to do something evil." Her words settled over the room. For the first time in days, Ji-hoon felt a small part of the burden lift. "You always know what to say," he admitted. Myra smiled. "My grandmother used to tell me that fear grows in silence. Talking about it makes it smaller." Ji-hoon chuckled. "I think I would have liked your grandmother." "You would have. She never let anyone leave her house hungry." They both laughed, and the heavy atmosphere eased. The next morning, Ji-hoon insisted on driving Myra to her office. I have security, she protested. And I have peace of mind if I'm there. As they pulled up outside the building, several employees turned to stare. Some whispered, while others openly pointed at the luxury car. Myra took a deep breath. I can handle gossip. Before she stepped out, Ji-hoon stopped her. Myra. She looked back. No matter what people say, don't face it alone. She nodded with a grateful smile. I won't. Hours later, Ji-hoon was in the middle of a board meeting when his phone vibrated. It was his chief of security. He excused himself and answered immediately. What happened? Miss Myra left work 10 minutes ago. I know. She texted me. Sir, she never made it to the car. Ji-hoon's heart dropped. What do you mean? The security team found her phone in the parking garage. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. Ji-hoon rushed from the meeting, ignoring the confused voices behind him. By the time he reached the parking garage, police officers had already sealed off the area. Myra's handbag lay on the ground beside her shattered phone. One of the bodyguards approached him. There are signs of a struggle. Ji-hoon's face turned pale. Was there any surveillance footage? The guard nodded grimly. We recovered part of it. He handed Ji-hoon a tablet. The video showed two masked men grabbing Myra as she fought back fiercely, striking one with her elbow before being forced into a black van. Just before the van door slammed shut, she looked directly at the security camera. As if hoping someone would see. Ji-hoon's fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. This ends today, he said, his voice calm but filled with resolve. For the first time since the conspiracy began, the battle had become deeply personal. And Ji-hoon was prepared to risk everything to bring Myra home. The black van disappeared into the evening traffic, leaving behind nothing but tire marks and shattered pieces of Myra's phone. Ji-hoon refused to waste a single second. Track every traffic camera within a 20-kilometer radius, he ordered his security team. Check toll booths, fuel stations, everything. Yes, sir. Within minutes, Hansong Group's private security command center was buzzing with activity. Dozens of screens displayed live and recorded footage from across Seoul. An analyst suddenly stood up. Sir, we've found the van. Everyone turned. It exited the city and entered an abandoned warehouse district near the old harbor. Ji-hoon grabbed his jacket. We're going. Sir, his head of security protested, it could be a trap. Ji-hoon looked him straight in the eye. I know. Then let us handle it. No. His voice was steady. They took Myra because of me. I'm bringing her home. Meanwhile, Myra sat tied to a metal chair inside a dimly lit warehouse. Her wrists were bound, but her spirit wasn't. One of the masked men paced in front of her. You've caused our boss a lot of trouble. Myra met his glare without flinching. I told the truth. If that ruined your plan, that's your problem. The man laughed bitterly. You're brave. My grandmother always said courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right even when you're afraid. He rolled his eyes and walked away. Just then, another man entered, carrying a phone. It's time. The masked man nodded and started a video call. Ji-hoon's face appeared on the screen. Mr. Kang, the kidnapper said coldly. If you want to see Miss Myra alive again, you'll transfer ownership of Hansong Group to Chairman Choi. Ji-hoon's expression remained calm. You know I can't do that. Then say goodbye. The kidnapper raised a pistol toward Myra. She looked into the camera. Ji-hoon. His heart tightened. Before she could say another word, the screen went black. Outside the warehouse, Ji-hoon's convoy arrived without headlights. Police special units quietly surrounded the building while his private security team took positions. The police commander whispered, on your signal. Ji-hoon nodded. 3, 2, 1, go. The warehouse doors burst open. Police. Don't move. Chaos erupted. The kidnappers scattered, firing wildly as officers returned fire. Ji-hoon raced through the confusion, searching every corner. Myra. I'm here. Her voice echoed from a side room. He forced the door open. Myra sat tied to the chair, relief flooding her face as she saw him. You came. I promised I would. He quickly untied her wrists. The moment she stood, she threw her arms around him. Ji-hoon held her tightly, his heart pounding with relief. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. They simply held each other, grateful the nightmare was over. Or so they thought. A loud click echoed behind them. Ji-hoon turned slowly. One of the kidnappers had escaped the police and now stood in the doorway, pointing a gun directly at them. You should have stayed away, the man snarled. Without thinking, Myra stepped in front of Ji-hoon. No! Ji-hoon shouted. A gunshot rang through the warehouse. Everything fell silent. The deafening gunshot echoed through the warehouse. Myra! Time seemed to stop. Instead of collapsing, Myra stumbled backward into Ji-hoon's arms. She looked down in shock. A crimson stain spread across the sleeve of her jacket. The bullet had grazed her upper arm. It's only my arm, she whispered through clenched teeth. Relief washed over Ji-hoon just as police officers tackled the gunman to the ground. Within seconds, the warehouse was secured, and the remaining kidnappers were placed in handcuffs. Paramedics rushed in, carefully bandaging Myra's wound before helping her onto a stretcher. As they wheeled her toward the ambulance, she reached out and took Ji-hoon's hand. I'm okay, she said with a faint smile. He squeezed her hand tightly, unwilling to let go. You scared me. I scared myself. For the first time since they had met, both of them laughed through their tears. A week later, Chairman Choi Min-suk and several of his senior executives were formally arrested. The police uncovered overwhelming evidence linking them to the drugging of Ji-hoon, the hotel conspiracy, the laboratory fire, online harassment, and Myra's kidnapping. The scandal that had been meant to destroy Ji-hoon instead exposed one of the largest corporate crimes in recent Korean history. News outlets praised Myra for her courage and honesty. Her company publicly supported her, and messages of encouragement poured in from people around the world. Yet none of that mattered as much as the quiet afternoon she spent recovering in the gardens of Ji-hoon's estate. Her arm was healing well. She sat beneath a blooming cherry tree, enjoying the cool breeze, when Ji-hoon walked toward her carrying a small wooden box. You've been acting mysterious all day, Myra teased. I have a reason. He stopped in front of her. Myra, before I met you, my life was carefully planned. Every meeting, every decision, every day had a purpose. He took a slow breath. Then you walked into the wrong hotel room. She laughed softly. The biggest mistake of my life. He smiled. The best thing that ever happened to mine. He knelt on one knee. Opening the box, he revealed a beautiful diamond ring that sparkled in the afternoon sunlight. Myra Baptiste, you defended me when you didn't even know my name. You stood beside me when everyone else questioned me. You risked your life to protect me. His voice trembled with emotion. You've shown me that love isn't about perfect timing or perfect circumstances. It's about finding the one person who gives you the courage to face every storm. Tears filled Myra's eyes. So, Ji-hoon looked at her with hope shining in his eyes. Will you marry me? She covered her mouth as tears rolled down her cheeks. Yes, she whispered. Then, louder, with a joyful laugh that echoed through the garden. Yes. I'll marry you. Ji-hoon slipped the ring onto her finger before pulling her into a gentle embrace. As cherry blossom petals drifted around them, they realized that the trap meant to destroy two strangers had instead brought together two hearts. Their story had begun with fear, betrayal, and a mistaken hotel room. It ended with trust, healing, and a love that neither wealth nor hatred could ever break.